what is up? My name is Olive. So this session is going to be a 30-minute whole body mobility based sequence where we're looking specifically at the joints, looking to increase their rotational capacity as well as their range of movement, also looking to improve and release some tension that is in the muscles across the whole body, but also more specifically looking to improve our neurological connections between the muscle and brain, seeing if we can use specific muscles in specific movements and just increasing our awareness of them. So all we're going to need apart from a yoga mat or a soft surface is a strap and a little object that either resembles a small book, a yoga block, or, in my case, a beautiful eye pillow by Wolf and Mermaid. So it has to be a little bit small, like that it can fit in the palm of your hand, and it is a little bit weighted. And like I said, a strap. So I'm using a yoga strap, but if you don't have one, that's totally cool. You can use a long broom handle or a scarf, as long as it's wide enough that when you hold it out in front of you, it's wider than your shoulders. Cool, so let's get started. So we're going to start lying down on our backs with our knees bent and our feet planted about hip distance on the ground. I'm going to have my hands on my belly, but it doesn't really matter where they go. And we're going to come into Windscreen Wipers. So you're just going to slowly and gently allow the knees to go down to the right before bringing them through center and taking them to the left. So like I said, nice slow controlled movements where you can pay attention and notice what sensations are going on in the body, what muscles are being used. Perhaps you're noticing the hip flexors switching on and looking at some rotation into the hips. Cool, so we're going to go for one more move each side. And then as you come back to neutral, we're going to hug the knees into our chest, trying to get them nice and close. So option to either open out the hands to a T shape, where the wrist, the elbow and shoulder are all in one nice long line, or taking the hands to a cactus shape where you create 90 degrees in between the forearm and the arm. And from here we're squeezing the ankles, we're squeezing the knees together, so we're creating some tension. And we're just looking to switch on the core a little bit. So we're gently going to bring ourselves into a spinal twist, so knees and feet move towards the right, but they're going to hover about an inch off the floor. So using that core to control the movement before slowly coming back to center and then moving to the left hand side. Again, hovering an inch off the ground. So important here that we find this nice slow controlled pace. We're not rushing through the movement. Where again we can come back and relay information between the muscles, between the brain, so we increase those neurological pathways. And if you're lucky, you might get a nice click in your spine. Cool, so we're going to go for one more move on each side. Remember to breathe. And slowly back to the middle. Planting the feet down to the ground, and release the hands, and we're going to bring ourselves into some hamstring flossing. So both hands are going to hold at the base of your hamstrings, and you're going to allow that foot, so the right foot, to just drop towards the ground. So from here we start to straighten the leg as much as possible before pointing, flexing, pointing the toe, then bringing it back down. And we're going to repeat this a couple times. So extend to point, flex, point, bring it back down. Again, extend, point, flex, point, bring it back down. So we're going to keep this going for another 4, so a total of 8. And you'll notice how the movement sometimes is in the calf, in the belly of the hamstrings, maybe in the glutes, and maybe even down towards the lower back. Cool. I think we have one more left. And then releasing, plant that right foot down and we'll move on to the left side. So again, start with the foot down, before extending, pointing, flexing, pointing, bringing it back down. So again, we're going to go for 8 in total. Try again to keep the level of breath consistent. So flossing is a technique that can be used throughout the body. We're actually going to come across another one later. And it's just to allow the fascia, so the connective tissues that run along all the muscles in the body and connect all of the muscles together, to just experience a little bit of release. So I think we've got one more. I don't remember one more anyway. And bring it back down, plant the feet to the ground. Then when you're ready, hug the knees into your chest. We're going to rock up 3 times. So rocking up for 1, for 2, and on 3, coming all the way up. Bring yourself to a kneeling position. So, option, you can either sit with the toes untucked, or you can have them tucked and sit on the heels. It's quite nice to stretch out the toes, but obviously feel free to do whatever feels best. So coming into some CARs, controlled articulate rotations, for the thoracic spine. Thoracic spine is sort of just below the neck, so where your collarbone starts, down towards the base of your ribs. So we're looking at this midsection in the spine. So when we do CARs, we're trying to isolate the movement just into this area. We're not trying to compensate into other areas of the body, specifically the shoulders and the hips and the lower back. So we're trying to minimize movement elsewhere and focus on that specific joint. So we're going to start by taking hands across and holding the shoulders. From here, we're going to start off by slowly building our awareness between the 6 major movements and then marrying them all together. So first of all, we're going to roll ourselves forwards, coming into flexion for the thoracic spine. Then as you come back to neutral, going behind, looking at extension. And again, coming forwards, and then moving back. So it's actually a very small movement in the body, particularly when you remove the ability for the hips and the lower back to move as well. So focusing on keeping these movements small, getting used to them, and then maybe over time you increase your range of movement. Meaning you can make these movements a little bit bigger and bigger as you gain more control over them. Cool. So I'm going to do one more each way. Before coming back to neutral. Now having a look at some rotation towards right and left. From here, rotating towards the right hand side. Notice how my shoulders are staying still. They're not guiding the movement. I'm guiding the movement from my thoracic spine. Again, the hips are staying level, they're not twisting with me. So I'm using the ability and the rotation that I currently have. So again, getting used to this, keeping it small, try to breathe. One more each side. And then back to center. Now we're looking at lateral flexion. So it's a little side bend right to left. So gently bending to the right. Neutral, and then bending to the left. Super common, try not to do this with your head, so not just tilt the head and then move, keeping the head relatively still, again finding the movement into that portion of the spine. Cool. And we're going to do it one more time each side. And all the way back to the middle, just as a little release for the feet. Briefly bring yourself back to a tabletop position and just pat out the feet a little bit. Cool. So you're going to marry those 6 movements together. So come back down to kneeling. Again, taking that stance with the arms across your shoulders. And from here, first of all, rolling forwards into flexion. Then from here, we're rotating towards the right hand side. Then we're coming to lateral flexion, or bending to the right. Remember, don't just use the head or the neck. Then rotating behind, we're coming into extension. And then from here, lateral flexion towards the left. And then rotating towards the left. Before coming forwards, back to flexion. And then into neutral. So I'm going to do it one more time. Again, try to keep the movement small. First of all, coming forwards to flexion. And then rotate to the left. Lateral flexion to the left, so that little side bend. Then coming behind into extension. Before laterally flexing to the right. Rotate to the right. Rolling forwards back to flexion. And then all the way up to neutral. And then release. Come back to your tabletop. Have a little pat out of the feet. And then we're going to start by tucking those toes. From here, we're going to have a little look at some spinal articulations, or I like to call them fancy cat-cows. So we're going to start with the belly dropping down to the ground, squeezing those shoulder blades together and looking forwards. So this is known as the cat pose. No, it's not, it's the cow pose. I always get the two confused. Cow pose in yoga. Just make sure your shoulders, elbows and wrists are over one another. You're gripping your fingertips into the ground and your hips are over your knees. So from this position here, we're going to think about waving up from the base of our spine, slowly coming from this position into our cat position. But trying to move one vertebrae at a time, starting from our tailbone. So it's a little bit difficult, but think about engaging the belly, drawing it into the spine and tucking in your tailbone. Slowly waving it up, so it's coming up towards the lower back, then the mid-spine, before the upper back. Pressing the ground away and eventually, last thing, we drop the chin to the chest. And from here we reverse the movement. So again from the tailbone, we start to push it away. Then let the lower back move down, then the upper back. Eventually the chest lowers and we slowly look forwards. So returning to our starting position. I just want you to slowly take your time to go through these movements. It's super tricky to suddenly move the spine individually, vertebrae by vertebrae, particularly when we're used to moving it as one. So again, like I said, always start with small movements, noticing the sensations, noticing the control, what's being used, before getting these movements bigger and bigger. If you feel totally lost with this, what I would recommend is filming yourself, or if you can watch yourself do it in a mirror. It's a really helpful way to learn. You get a little bit more visual feedback, rather than just relying on the body sensations. So slowly we're going to come back to our cow position, so where we started. Lovely. And then from here back to our tabletop position. Having a look at a nice ankle stretch next. Come back to sitting on your heels. And we're going to take the right foot forwards first. So as you sit down on your heels, the right foot is going to step in front, so the toes match up to the knee. So try and make sure for this that the hips stay level, so do the shoulders, they're all facing forwards, we're not sort of weirdly twisting out to the side, because we want to specifically work on our ankle range of movement in dorsiflexion. So from here, we're going to make sure we're gripping our toes into the ground and the foot stays flat throughout the whole of this movement, so don't let the heel lift off. We're going to hug that right knee and slowly shift as much body weight as we can over that front knee without letting the heel lift off the ground. So you're hugging it in really nice and tight, staying here for about 30 seconds. And what you'll start to notice is there's a stretch sensation going on. From the ankle, maybe it goes all the way up towards the calf, maybe even in the front where the shin is. And we're just slowly seeing if we can increase our degree of joint sort of movement. But for some people, you might not feel this, and that totally depends on how tight the area that we're stretching is. So if you want, you can add a load, like a weight, if you have one at home, or a bag of sugar, just to put a little bit more pressure on it. Cool. Slowly we're going to back out and then swap sides. So bringing the right knee back, and I'm going to step the left foot forwards. I'm going to turn to face the camera. So toes again in line with that knee, make sure the hips, the shoulders are level. Grip the toes, keep the foot flat, slowly lean yourself forwards, hug that knee in. And what you might have noticed is that either the left side is totally more open or it's feeling a little bit more tight than the right. For me right now, my left is screaming at me. It's so much tighter than my right side. So it's important to note that rights and lefts are totally different, and we shouldn't just push to the same range that we just did, or, keep ourselves back. We have to treat each side completely independently and see what modifications we need to offer, depending. And as always, make sure we're breathing. Cool. And slowly, let's back ourselves out and bring ourselves back into our tabletop position. So from here, we're going to bring ourselves into a Yogi Squat. So for that, let's lift ourselves up into downward dog. So creating that upside down V shape. Looking in between the hands, picking up the right leg and step it on the outside of both of the hands. And then left foot joins to match. As you sink the hips down, take the fingertips to the front of your mat, so a little bit further forwards. So for this, it really doesn't matter if the heels are flat on the ground or if they're lifted up, but we're going to keep our fingertips down for a moment and just work on squeezing our butts and engaging the glute muscles and seeing if we can open out the knees a little bit more to the side without using too much resistance from the elbows just yet. So, as I'm talking, get comfortable, still breathe, still make sure you're maintaining that nice open chest. And we're going to play a little Yogi Squat game. So, inspiration from my friends at the Movement Loft, taking that object, so that little block or that book or whatever it is, and you're going to plant it in front of you to start with. So the aim is we place that object somewhere else with one hand and we retrieve it with the other hand whilst trying to stay in this squat position. But we can lift up toes, we can lift up heels, but we're sort of keeping the foundation here. So I'm just going to go through a couple rounds of this. So retrieve it with one hand, plant it in another direction, take hold of it with the other and take it elsewhere. And you're just going to continue with this as slow or as quick as you like, figuring out loads of creative little movements. So rotations, taking the object behind you, retrieving it with the other. Really reach it as far in front of you as you can, maybe through the legs, but always coming back to this foundation of the squat. So it's a nice little way just to warm up into the hips as well and get our creative juices all flowing. Cool. So let's do 2 more retrievals before bringing it back to our starting position. And from here, let's take palms together, press knees open just for a moment, squeezing the butt. Letting hands go down, turn the toes forwards, and then lift the body up. Give yourself a little shake. So we're going to have a look at some neck cards. Feet are going to be about hip distance apart. And you're going to make a fist with both your hands. Try and push the ground away. Imagine you're pushing water down, so you're really keeping it strong. So from here again, we're sort of minimizing the compensation in the rest of the body as we focus on the neck. So shoulders down, making a fist, squeeze the butt, core is engaged. We're going to start by looking forwards. And then dropping the chin down to the chest. Looking across to your left thumb. And then you're going to take your left ear to your left shoulder. So your gaze now becomes slightly forwards. Just breathe here for 1 cycle of breath. Inhale. To exhale. And then we're going to rotate the head behind. So taking right ear to right shoulder. Again, gaze is forwards. Breathing in for 1 cycle. Then looking down at the right thumb, chin to the chest, before looking forwards. So I'm going to do it one more time, make sure we're keeping that engagement everywhere. So chin down to the chest. This time let's look at the right thumb. Then right ear to right shoulder, 1 cycle of breath. Try not to move your shoulders here. Then circle behind you, left ear, left shoulder, 1 cycle of breath. Look down at the left thumb, chin to the chest, and then slowly looking forwards and releasing those hands, give the body a little shake, a little bounce. Cool. So coming back to your object, you're going to plant it and place it in your right hand. So try not to grip it too much. Have the hand as flat as possible, so no cheating with the tips of your fingers or the thumb. We're going to come into some movements called teacups and seeing if we can sort of change our height as well, going from standing to seated and then back up. So teacups is just a really, really nice and fun way to mobilize the shoulders and just wake up the shoulder joint. So have the feet planted about hip distance. You're going to start with the object in your hand, in your right hand, just sort of out in front of you. Then you're going to spiral it up and above your head and see if you can bring it back down to its starting position, almost creating like a 360 spiral. And allow your hips, allow your spine to get involved as well. Maybe change direction of the circles, don't just go to a strong kind of side. And then start to play around. Maybe you walk, maybe you come down onto one knee. Maybe eventually coming down into more of a tabletop position, before eventually bringing yourself to seated. If you're super comfortable and super confident, maybe see if you can lie down. I'm not going to because I know I can't, but I will challenge myself in the future. And then from the seated position, can you change into the other hand and keep the rotation going? So try to make that transition smooth. Again, you'll notice that one side is definitely more able than the other. That is fine. Just modify as you need. Slowly start to see if you can make your way up into a kneeling position or a quadruped position. And then eventually up to standing. Go for a couple more rotations. Last one. Before coming all the way back to neutral. And there we go. So we're going to have a look at some shoulder flossing. So if you grab your scarf, your strap or your broomstick and find a nice neutral position where the hips are directly over the feet and there's a nice stable ground. Your core is switched on, it's drawn in, you're engaging your glutes so that we stay in this nice neutral position while shoulders are over the hips. Because for this movement we want to avoid curving the spine too much, overextending and flexing, and sort of drawing the movement elsewhere by compensating and taking it away from the shoulders. So, with that object, my strap in this case, you're going to hold it out in front of you, wider than your shoulders. The more narrow that you bring the hands in, the harder this is, but we're going to start with them wider. So again, creating that tension in the body where everything's nice and neutral, start by bringing the strap down towards the hips, and then lifting it up and over your head, slowly taking it behind, maybe that's as far as you go, or maybe you can bring it down towards your lower back, and then again bringing it forwards. So again with this, nice slow controlled movements, not flinging yourself, not overcompensating the spine, keeping it in neutral, where we can pay attention to the sensations, to the feelings in the shoulder joint, and we experience quite a nice opening to the chest, particularly to the pec muscles. So this is another one where it's super helpful to record yourself doing and watch yourself do in a mirror, because more often than not, the shoulders don't move together. One is a little bit weaker than the other, one guides the movement more. Cool. So, take your time, remember to breathe. Last one. Cool. And then release and relax, and we're going to bring ourselves down onto our bellies. It doesn't matter how you get there, but we're going to allow the feet to be flat on the ground, where we can push them down into the mat. So we engage the quads, squeeze the butt, push the hips to the floor and engage the core. So the whole of the posterior chain is active, as well as the lower body. So these are called prone angels, and they work at just opening and getting the connection deeper to the muscles in our upper back. So you're going to start with the hands out in front of you, flat to the ground, forehead on the mat, and just checking we have that engagement still there in the lower body. So inhale, lift the head, lift the hands off the ground and turn the palms to face one another, thumbs are up. From here, you're going to bring your hands behind you, squeezing the shoulder blades together, seeing if you can get the palms to touch. It's pretty damn hard before coming all the way back. And again, squeezing behind, squeeze the upper traps, mid traps, lower traps, before coming back. Couple more times, squeeze the butt. Focus on that rotation, that external rotation. Mine's pretty weak, so you might be able to get a little bit further with the hands coming together. Last one. And back, and releasing. Make a pillow with your hands and just let your hips rock side to side. So that's quite a nice one to help switch on the pathways, to get a bit more connected to the muscles in your upper back. Particularly if you do yoga quite a lot, these movements, these muscles might feel a little bit alien to you. Cool. So from here, we're going to come into a beautiful pancake stretch. So on your belly, you're going to take your right hand out to the side. And again, the wrist, the elbow and shoulder are all in one nice long line with one another. From here, you'll notice that my shoulder's rolling forwards, yours might be as well, but we're going to try to roll it back and bring it into more of a neutral position. Left hand is out to the side, supporting us, bending the left leg, And we're slowly going to lift our hips and rotate over towards the right hand side. Maybe that foot is floating or maybe it plants down on the ground. Turning your head to look to the left, and you can place your head down on the ground if you would rather. But if you're not feeling an awful lot here into your pec, into your shoulder, you just create that cactus shape with the arm, and you again continue with the rotation as much as you're comfortable with. Working on pressing that right arm down to the ground, and then slowly coming back. Make that pillow rock those hips, and then we will do it on the other side. So I'm going to turn myself around, extend the left hand out to the side, take it straight first of all to see what condition the shoulder is in, and then try again, roll the shoulder back so it's more in neutral. Right hand is supporting your body, lifting up the right leg, then rotating over towards the left hand side. Head is floating or down on the ground, and if you want to, take that cactus position with the left arm. Remember the breath here, particularly important. Let's go for one more cycle of breath before slowly coming forwards, making a pillow with your hands and rocking out those hips. Okay, so from here we're going to bring ourselves back into our tabletop position and then have a little look at some sort of lunge work. So stepping that right foot forwards on the outside of both of your hands, grounding down through the feet and picking yourself up into a nice 90-90 position in the legs, where we're creating 90 degrees throughout the legs and the hips. Again, squeezing the butt, keeping it engaged, engaging through the core. Right hand is going to start on the right knee. Inhale to lift that left hand. Exhale, slowly bending towards the right hand side. So again, try to keep driving forwards with the hips ever so slightly so you increase that stretch sensation down into the left hip flexor. Breathing, particularly important, obviously. And we're going to slowly rotate towards the right hand side. So again, that sort of rotation that we covered earlier with the thoracic spine. Keep driving forwards with the hips. And slowly all the way back to neutral, bring the hands above the head, and then make a sort of brace position, hands are by your side, making a little fist, elbows locked in. We're going to slowly shift the weight forwards into the front leg, as much as we can, without the heel lifting off the ground, squeezing the butt, and then slowly all the way back up. So again, coming forwards, as far in front of us as we can, slowly back up. One more time, forwards, and gently all the way up. From here, we're going to bring this foot out to about 90 degrees, so opening it out towards the side, toes are turned away from us, so the inner thigh is open and exposed towards the front of the mat. Again, same thing, brace the hands, slowly lean into that knee. Foot is flat, toes are gripping, gradually all the way back up. And again, leaning. Control, keep the glutes on as you bring yourself up. Last move, down, slowly, all the way back. Lovely. From here, reset, bring yourself to our original starting position, plant those hands and swap those legs over. So left foot now comes in front. I'm going to turn to face the camera this time. Again, remembering that 90-90 stance. From here, we're going to take our left hand onto our knee. Inhale, right hand goes up. Exhale, slowly bending towards the left hand side. So focusing the breath towards the right ribs. And then when you're ready, start to rotate towards the left hand side. So bring the right shoulder forwards. Keep squeezing the butt, trying to press the hips in front. And then slowly all the way back to that low lunge stance, hands above, before bracing, elbows in, making that fist, squeezing the butt, keeping the core controlled as you lean the weight forwards, as far as you can go, before slowly coming back up. Again, going down 2 more times. Again, be mindful that your knee isn't turning out or wobbling either side. It's staying straight on. Last one. Lovely. And then from here, taking the foot out to about 90 degrees, toes turned away from you, shoulders facing forwards, hips facing forwards, slowly leaning out as you brace. All the way back up, squeeze. And again, down. Nice controlled movements again, moving within your current range. Last time. Lovely. From here, reset, plant those hands, and then you're going to step yourself back to that tabletop. And then drop the hips, swing the legs round to the front, and find yourself in a bear sit. So, where the knees are bent and the toes are turned out ever so slightly. So the knees are wider than the hips, toes are wider than the knees. From here, we're going to bring ourselves into some bear sit rotations, where we come from bear sit into a 90-90 leg stance. So start by taking the hands behind you. You're going to rotate towards the right hand side, and as you do, your knees are going to come down to the ground, and you'll notice that you're in this 90-90 stance again, where we're creating angles in the lower body. Turning the head forwards, trying to turn the shoulders as well. And then from here, hands go behind, we're going to switch and rotate towards the left hand side. Again, figure out where the hands want to go. Are you facing forwards? We're just going to take our time to move in between the two. Nice and gentle movements, gently looking at internal and external rotation for the hips. And you might find that your front knee is off the ground a little bit, or this back glute is super high off the ground, and that's just sort of highlighting perhaps weaknesses in joint health. So a lack of either external rotation or internal rotation. So it would be a lack of internal rotation if your front knee is off the ground, a lack of external rotation if your glute is off the ground. And again, with this, you can make it harder if you want. You just hold a weight out in front of you and do it without the hands, or you just do it without the hands. Brace in front and slowly rotate to the other side. When those hands are in front of you, there's a lot more core control and stability that is required to move in between the two stances either side. Cool. So let's go for one more rotation, whichever variation that is, on each side. Before slowly coming back to your bear sit, and then releasing your legs, giving them a little shake out, and having a little wriggle around if you need. So thank you guys, I hope you enjoyed. If there were any questions on anything that I covered in this session, please let me know in the comments. Any feedback as well is of course welcome, or any suggestions for future videos. I really appreciate it all. So thank you, have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you next time.